Hello and welcome to the Raptors show on the Sportsnet Radio Network, presented by Coors Light. Go from full time to game time. Coors Light, made to chill. Make sure you find the Raptors show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review the show. I'm your host, Wayne Lou. I'm joined by fellow co-host Blake Murphy, who got the long weekend off to attend to some good news in the family. So, Blake, welcome back, man.
Thanks, man. I find it very, very funny in this industry where, like, I got a couple Twitter messages, which is obviously a very nice thing when I wasn't on the show Friday, but people act like taking a normal weekend is like a vacation where you're gone for a long time.
Yeah.
The Raptors also didn't play. They played Friday night, of course. I watched that and I was, paying attention and everything like that. But it was very, very nice. You guys might appreciate this. A listener of the show recognized me in the buffet line at an all-you-can-eat Chinese buffet in Kitchener, which is probably like the most embarrassing place I've been recognized, just like a loaded plate overflowing. And so shout out to Chu, who recognized me there. It was a fun weekend, though.
That's amazing, man. Yeah. That is amazing.
How was practice, man?
How was practice? Yeah. So I was down at Raptors practice because the Raptors kind of had the whole weekend off too, right? Like Saturday they didn't practice, and then Sunday
Friday they didn't play defense. They only got a half day in.
They earned it. They really earned the day off on Saturday after the performance against the Knicks on Friday.
Scotty did anyway.
He did. And then yesterday was Giants of Africa, the gala. So today they're back at practice. They're gonna be practicing tomorrow, all week. Blah blah blah. I mean, we really don't talk about practice this much. So I thought I'd just get down there and just see what's going on. There's not been that many practices we've been able to attend this year. I gotta say, not too much to report on. I mean, you had already written this in your piece because you went down to the 905. But I asked Grady just to put it on the record if he had changed the shot. And his exact quote was, "I haven't changed my shot my entire life. I shot the same way since my mom made it when I was 3." So I like that his jump shot is like the little Lunchables that your mom would pack to.
Yeah, and look, I included this in the piece that when the Raptors and 905 head coach Eric Khoury, who's worked with Grady Dick since the day he came in the door, when they talk about making little changes to his jump shot, these are, Grady Dick considers them more reminders than changes. Hey, keep that base wide, keep that base strong, shoot when you're stationary like you shoot coming off a screen and things like that. And look, he also told me in that piece that his confidence hasn't been hit by how he shot. I'll take the next 10 shots. I don't care.
Yep.
And on Friday, he finally saw some shots go through. The 905 won their first game of the season at Scotiabank Arena, an 11 a.m. game there where Grady Dick hit 4 of 7 on threes. He finished that game with 21 points on just 14 field goal attempts. And the 905, or what's left of them, were able to come away with a win. That team just remains incredibly, incredibly snake-bitten, though. Marquise Noel was out for that game already, as were Justice Winslow, Daryl Marcel, Omari Moore, and Miles Burns. And then Mo G got a really scary moment. The scans and stuff came back negative on his neck, so that's good. But he was like at the hospital post-game. Ron Harper left that game with a rib injury. So at least they got one win in there, but man.
Yeah, at least I have happy news to report on that front. It seemed like Mo G was up and walking about at least post-game before going to the hospital and stuff, but he was okay. At least it wasn't anything like super, super severe. And then, guys like Marquise and Ron were back at practice shooting, around. Darko was contesting some Marquise threes.
All right.
Yeah. I think he could have blocked a couple.
I guess Darko's got the length for that, right?
I'm just saying, I feel like Darko could have swatted a couple. But otherwise for practice, I mean, what else? Pascal talked about his three-point shooting struggles.
We're talking about
what do you have to, because there was a Pascal quote that floated out that I wanted to talk about as well, but what did he say specifically about his threes? Samson Folk had a good piece on the three-point shooting struggles at Raptors Republic today as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask Pascal about the three-point shooting, but then Eric Kareem jumped ahead and asked a question, which was great. And yeah, Pascal, I don't know, he didn't really like give a good explanation for it. It's not like he's like, I've been really like, I'm changing my shot or sort of like anything like that. It was more just like, he's like, look, when you're not shooting that many attempts, a couple rim in and out, your percentage drops. I don't know if I fully like, that's not like satisfactory. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, that changes everything. It's not like the Grady thing where it's like, okay, he's not changed the shot. Therefore, like, I'm like, okay, I feel pretty good about this because it doesn't seem like you should change a shooter's shot. With Pascal's shot, I'm like, look, it's been a month and you've shot like 10% from three.
On top of which, like, Pascal, I know Grady Dick is much younger, and what you shot in high school, what you shot in college is not as important as what you shot in the NBA. But it's not as if Pascal's peak as a 3-point shooter was like elite. He went from having the worst 3-point shooting season of all time as a sophomore. He shot 22% on the year and took almost 2 attempts a game, to settling in as like, okay, 37% on basically just catch and shoot corner threes, then 36%. And then basically, since his offensive role expanded enough where he has to take those above the break threes and it's a little bit more pull up, it's a little less corner stationary. He has, over the last 4 seasons combined, settled in as a 31% 3-point shooter. So I don't even look at this as he's shot 20% this year. I look at it as we have a 4-year sample that says this guy's barely north of 30%, which can be okay when, you're the post scorer you are, et cetera. But when it comes to what is your fit next to Scotty Barnes, how do you optimize? How are you going to age as you get into your 30s and things like that? The fact that skill that he displayed for 2 years seems to have disappeared is a little troubling for me.
No, it totally is troubling. And I think, Pascal's had this weird relationship with the 3-point shot. That year you mentioned when he shot at the best in 2020, that was also in the bubble. It completely abandoned him to the point where it's like, look, we don't have to revisit it, but the bubble was really ugly. And I think that was a very informative experience for him. He really, really started to build out the mid-range game from that point onwards, because it was more of a reliable shot for him to get to, more of a comfortable range for him to get to. And since then, he's worked and become really good inside the arc. I think he might be even shooting close to a career high in 2-point percentage this year as well. But, look, listen, the threes are what they are. Like every game, it's like 1 for 5. And
he's shooting the best he shot on twos basically since he took on this role. You have to go back to the championship year where,
they were still guarding him single coverage. By the way, I was watching some videos on the weekend on YouTube of just like, the Raptors championship run.
Of course you were.
And I was just like, and, Kurt Goldsberry was the one narrating the piece for ESPN. He was talking about, and Pascal really emerged, and, he really scored really well that year. And I'm watching all the highlight clips. I'm like, A, he's in single coverage. And B, the spacing on the floor is just immaculate. When the camera pans and they show like just the central action of whoever has the ball, Pascal in the post, there's like maybe 1 or 2 other players on the screen. But that's how good the spacing is. Yeah. Everybody is hugged up on Danny Green, on Kawhi Leonard, on Kyle Lowry. And I'm just like, damn, when you watch that versus what you watch nowadays, it's like the whole 2 teams are on the screen. There's like 9-10 players in the picture at any given time. But
yeah, our poor Sportsnet people have like completely had to change the geography of how they shoot a game, because before it was all wide shots. It's like, you got to pay attention to the weak side corner. And now it's like, no, you don't. The defender's in the paint anyway.
Yeah, we went from 16:9 aspect ratio to 4:3 aspect ratio.
So the other thing that Pascal talked about at practice, and these are the quotes that came out, the Raptors haven't won 3 games in a row this year. You have to go back to late March last year when they beat, and get this, their last 3-game winning streak.
I know what it was. It was Charlotte twice?
No.
They
bookended the Charlotte with losses to Philly and Boston on either side.
Wow. My bad.
Just before that, though, they beat Detroit, Washington, and then Miami. So that was the last time they won 3 in a row. Last time they were 2 games over 500 was over a calendar year ago now. They were 11-9 last year. So they got asked about that a little bit at practice today. Pascal said, it doesn't feel like anything is bad. It just feels like nothing is amazing. And then Pascal revealed that Darko has told the team dinner's on him when they finally win 3 straight. So now it's not $500,000 per player like the in-season tournament, but now it's if you can win 3 in a row, you get a free Shanghai 360 before the game.
Oh man, shouts to Chew at the buffet. No, look, I think that's the biggest problem with the team, right? Because you see this inconsistency. It's not like they're not capable of getting results. It's just they don't stay at a consistent level. And then what's really frustrating about it is like it's never the same thing. It's like some games it's like, okay, they're losing because of free throw shooting. Some games are losing because of 3-point shooting. Some games are losing because they start out super slow. Has nothing to do with their shooting. Just they start out super slow and they got to come back. And sometimes they come back, but most times they get buried by it. Some games they don't play defense. Some games they don't share the ball enough. So I was like, it's hard to sort of pinpoint, but ultimately, if you do want to be anything other than mediocre, and look, a lot of the league is like probably like 10, 15 teams around 500 or within 2 games of 500 like the Raptors. But like, yeah, we've kind of been in this stasis for like the last 3 years running now. So
yeah, and where Pascal says, it doesn't feel like anything is bad, it just feels like nothing is amazing. I understand that feeling. I understand they're 9-11. and they haven't gone on a big winning streak or a big losing streak. So you can say that. I would say, though, that something does feel bad. They're 29th in free throw shooting and 28th in three-point shooting.
Yeah.
And there's no way around that. You're very near the bottom of the league in two very important shooting areas, and you do not have the personnel that you would look at it and say, well, that should regress to normal. No, these are the levels. Maybe the free throw shooting could be a little better because no team should shoot under 73% for the entire season, but their three-point percentage is almost exactly what it was last year.
Yeah.
So I don't think that. So I would say that, respectfully, Pascal, that I feel like that is bad, especially because I don't think there's a resolution with just internal in-season development.
Yeah, well, I mean, it turns out if you don't change the team doesn't change. So speaking of the team changing, though, because this was a nice surprise. Woke up this morning, first thing I do is check Woj's timeline because I'm a sicko. And I see that Fred VanVleet is appearing on the Woj Pod. And so I tap in, knowing that Fred's probably going to talk about Toronto, knowing that Fred's a really good speaker, as we know here in Toronto. And a couple of clips did really jump out when Fred spoke about his free agency process. So I want to change the subject and get to those because I know he's already left the team, but it is interesting hearing from his perspective how the free agency meetings went. So here's that clip.
Did Toronto feel like a recruitment anymore?
No, not at all. And I think that's part of it. And I have a great relationship with those guys, obviously Masai and Bobby. And I grew up in Toronto. I earned a lot of who I am there. But again, you got to understand the situation and kind of know what's going on in the organization. And it was just a time where it's like, okay, it's starting to go around Scotty. It's starting to go around some of the other young guys. And my value there wasn't probably as great as it was in Houston. And, really that's all it boiled down to. So it definitely was not much of a buttering up in that meeting. But I always give Masai credit for shooting straight and being honest and upfront. And, you gotta commend him for that. And we've always had a great line of communication, and he was pretty straightforward,
Yeah. What do you think about that idea?
Yeah, I think, that makes sense. And that certainly backs up how it kind of felt once free agency got going. I do remember, hearing around those times that the Raptors didn't give Fred VanVleet no offers, but once it got to $42 million per year, it got a little tougher. Now there's also the weirdness of like Fred's deal is technically 2 years and a team option, and things like that.
Sure.
But yeah, I understand that. However, there is, this once again kind of shines a spotlight on this incongruency between what the Raptors have actually been doing roster build wise and what they are saying. And Fred saying, well, they were taking, they were looking to the future. They're going to build. I think there's another quote where he uses the phrase start over. And those are the things you're talking about. But at the same time, they had so they were 26-30 at the trade deadline. And they decided at that trade deadline, trade a first round pick in a couple seconds for Jakob Poeltl. Do not trade Fred VanVleet for whatever might be available. Do not trade Pascal Siakam, Gary Trent, OG Anunoby for what might be available. It is 4 months later in real calendar time, but in NBA time, they only got a couple weeks more of information. They were one game over 500 after the trade deadline. Sure, it looked a little better with Jakob Poeltl, but if that was your feeling and that was how you operated at the trade deadline, and then you go to July 1st and that's your thinking with Fred VanVleet, well, why didn't you trade Fred VanVleet at the trade deadline? Because there wasn't much more new information, and certainly not new information about Fred VanVleet. Shocker, he looked better offensively with a pick and roll partner. We didn't learn anything new about Fred in those last 2 months. So why did the perspective on his situation change? And then if you turn around and you've said, we did this at the trade deadline, put on the brakes, we're not going to re-sign Fred because it's not good enough. But then you also hear, well, they didn't really get very far on exploring Pascal Siakam trade situations, Gary Trent trade situations. They re-upped Jakob Poeltl, which they probably felt like they had to do because they gave up picks for him. But they gave him they gave him a contract that I thought was above what he was going to get. Now market value is whatever you can get, but 4 years, $78 million with some bonus upside for Jakob Poeltl. They paid every dollar of the market value for him. So there is this misalignment of what Fred is saying their perspective seemed like, how they operated on July 1st, and what they did the rest of the offseason, what they had done the trade deadline prior. And it strikes me, Will, that we're headed for this exact same situation with Pascal Siakam.
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, like, I can appreciate that the front office wants to move towards Scottie and the young guys.
It then.
That's the direction. The thing is, I feel like they're unwillingly moving that direction. They're being dragged in that direction versus they're choosing and to roll the ball in that direction. Again, the trade deadline last year is that inflection point that they really needed to take, and they totally missed the exit there. But also at the same time, like, this is one of the issues when you have with trading expiring players. I'm sure when they were looking around and calling teams of like, hey, what would you give up for Fred VanVleet? Seems like his time in Toronto is probably over at last year's trade deadline. Teams are probably calling just as paying rental prices versus like, hey, here's an acquisition price for me to get Fred VanVleet, right? And of course, that would also be contingent on you need to call his representatives, talk to Clutch, be like, you know, are you willing to re-sign here? What's the price look like? And I'm sure those discussions probably didn't happen to those large degree to the point where teams acquiring him would feel comfortable in getting him other than as a rental. That's why the trade offers were like Grayson Allen and some like pick swaps or something. Like that's kind of nothing.
Sure.
But, I mean, at the same time though, like that's where the front office has to make that decision, even coming into that point.
And
right?
There's also the quote, and I'm paraphrasing here from Masai, that, you know, those trade offers they didn't engage with at the trade deadline would still be there in the offseason, which to me said they think they can at least get something in sign and trade for Fred. And look, I know that, and there was more James Harden talking this weekend as well. I know there was a domino where everyone thought James Harden was re-upping with Philadelphia because Daryl Morey had allegedly promised him a max extension. And if not, or even if via sign and trade, he was headed to Houston as a plan 1B. And nobody really had looked at, like, I think we talked a lot about Orlando as a potential spot to make a Fred play if they were ready to take the next step. We knew before the Beal stuff happened, we know Phoenix has always been high on him. Utah has always been high on him. The Houston match and them having enough cap space to not require the bird rights or the sign and trade, and also being able to kind of tiptoe where they were still an attractive spot for a guy like Fred, because, hey, we can bring in Dylan Brooks as well. And, you know, here are the young pieces that we have. That was a bit of an unknown scenario, but still there is, to me, this misalignment of the way you have operated at the two different ends of the last calendar year and the way you operated with Fred in the middle. And again, I'm not saying that this Raptors team would be better paying Fred VanVleet $42 million right now versus Dennis Schroeder for $12 million. It's more that particular situation highlights this like lack of cohesiveness in the strategy over the last calendar year.
That's fair. We have another clip here where Fred talked about his experience on the Raptors and him knowing that last year was it.
I felt that from day one, that it was just a great fit, and I was excited. And no, it was never easy. It was, you know, one of the most difficult decisions I've made, especially as a professional in my life. But I think more than anything, it was just like trying to look ahead and you know, use a little foresight and have some vision about, you know, things that are gonna happen down the line. And so I didn't want to be in a position where I was just signing a contract because the number was good and the contract was good. I wanted to kind of position myself, you know, for whatever the second half of my career now, as I'm going on my 8th year. So just kind of looking ahead and seeing, you know, the writing was definitely on the wall. And once we got to that point where it's like, okay, they clearly, you know, are going in a different direction. This is not the situation that I was brought into and kind of nurtured in and cultured in and won a championship in. This is a different environment that they're, you know, they have to kind of start over a little bit. And I would just want it to be somewhere where I could be myself all the way through and not like have to try to fit into a box, you know what I mean? And I think it was best for all parties.
Yeah, I think it was best for both parties because obviously Houston's very, very happy with what they're getting on their side of things.
Yeah, Fred's 4th in the league in assists per game right now, and he has just this monstrous assist to turnover ratio. Over 9 assists a game and only a turnover and a half.
It's been great watching him too. He's made a bunch of clutch shots for them as well in a lot of these big wins for them. Also, he's run a nice 2-man game with Şengün, which I think has really helped him sort of emerge as well. But I think more importantly, Fred actually talked about later on in the interview, he said the culture's already changed. Whether or not we make the playoffs this year, how many wins we got, the culture in Houston has already changed. You can definitely tell when you watch the Rockets. But from the Toronto side of things, when you hear him say that, and does that give you a little bit of trepidation in the sense that like the situation has changed? They want to start over with their culture. I mean, that's what they talked about, cultural shift. But like,
it is, and they use the term unselfishness, and you know I did not enjoy watching this team play at the end of last year, and I get that, but I do, I think Fred and Pascal being the guys who are held over, like they were brought in during the DeMar Kyle, we keep running into this block in the playoffs era. And that was a culture that had been built by Dwayne Casey and DeMar and Kyle and JV. And, that was a good culture, but there was obviously an on-court sticking point. And then at some point, yes, a psychological sticking point against the Cavaliers. Like game 1, 2018, broke them all, and it was they were never coming back from it. But they experienced that, and the type of leadership that Dwayne Casey provided from an organizational foundation level, and the type of leadership that Kyle and DeMar provided, which, Kyle obviously could be, somewhat antagonistic, but also did a lot of stuff very quietly for guys to help them out. And DeMar was more of a, well, none of you are going to beat me to the gym, but you better show me that you're working, and then I'll invest in you, that kind of thing. And then obviously the championship culture has to change a little bit because the goals have changed and the pressure has changed. You bring in a player like Kawhi, who is not as much of a typical leader, but has this kind of weight to his superstardom and his personality. You also surround that with Danny Green and Marc Gasol, and Serge at that point has grown into a leader and stuff where, culturally, it's almost like the Expendables movie where like everyone has just come together. Like all these guys just need to win a title, and they're on the last year of their deal or almost at the end of their deal, almost at the end of their career. And then pivoting out of that, with, hey, what does a Nick Nurse culture look like when Kawhi's not there and every single possession isn't the end of the world? And, transitioning out of that, transitioning out of Kyle's leadership, you transitioned out of DeMar's leadership, you lost vets like Mark, Serge, and you would hope, and the way that good organizations stay relevant for a really long time is that all of that stuff would have stayed because of Nick, stayed because of Fred, stayed because of Pascal, stayed because of OG, and then those pieces that are then being added, at least Malachi Flynn got the tail end of that culturally and things like that. And there has been too much erosion year over year, and as each piece goes away, you hope that when Kyle leaves, say Kyle's imprint is left and the culture that he's helped build, that's still there. But it seems with each Kyle, with each Mark, with each Danny, etc., Norm, too much of that was eroded and didn't stick around. And I think that's probably what Fred's getting at a little bit there, where he says, culturally, Houston made more sense for him. And that's fine. Mm-hmm. No, very few teams, we talked about it the other day, the Warriors having 3 guys who have been there forever. Like that just doesn't happen.
No.
Really. So these things happen, but it is, as the Raptors continue to search for here, I think off court, they're getting the off court cultural kind of reset is well ahead of the on-court one. Yeah. But it's interesting to examine, especially as, other teams who were behind the Raptors this time last year have managed to do that and take a further step on the court as well.
Yeah. And I think one way you can look at this too is just they have started to try to import culture. Let's bring in Thad Young. Let's bring in Garrett Temple. And let those guys be some of the leaders of the team. In years past, you didn't really need to see that happen. Partially because they did have a better roster and also they had more veterans, but their veterans are also able to carry that forward. So pretty purposeful change. And then the last clip here, just Fred talking about last season, he said, quote, "It kind of felt like a job." So
I felt that from day one, that it was just a great fit. And I was excited. And I think that, the first day was like, I had the itch and the joy, because last year was such a drag for us that, whether it was coach going through stuff or different players here and there, like it was just such a drag, to get through the season that it starts to feel like a job. And that was my first year kind of being unhappy playing basketball. And most of it was due to my own play, and I'll take credit for that. You know what I mean? I'll take responsibility for that. But at the same time, it just wasn't a great season of basketball for us. And so getting that joy back was huge for me.
Getting that joy back was huge for me.
This guy's Shawn Michaels. He lost his smile.
Yo,
Alex will get that reference. I know you will.
Yeah, he's just sitting there in the corner enjoying this. But yeah, what did you make of that? Because yeah, he talked about a lot of things that we already understood that Nick was going through stuff, the team was going through stuff. It just wasn't that happy of an environment. I think it obviously just kind of gets confirmed when it's sort of spoken like this. But your thoughts on Fred's experience with the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to hear because obviously you want guys to enjoy being here, playing here, enjoy the city, enjoy the fan base. That's certainly something I don't think Fred was doing by the end. Now, there is also an element of, that's what the money's for. Like, you get paid really well and you got to cash in after the offseason, so can't feel too badly for you. But I think that, big picture, you want your organization, even in a 500 season, to be somewhere that people can find themselves and be true to themselves and enjoy themselves. So, that's something that, maybe Darko's more personal style of leadership is going to help usher back in, where guys are comfortable here and having fun here. The truth, though, is, as you and I have talked about a lot, winning is fun and losing is not fun. And a lot of what Nick Nurse felt, Masai felt, Scotty felt, Fred felt, etc., probably is a lot different if they win 4 or 5 more games last year and they're out of the play-in and they get an actual playoff series. And even if they don't win, the on-court slog is still there. But if they win an extra game every couple weeks and they're a little higher in the standings and they make the playoffs, it's just the margins are that small sometimes.
Yeah, I like that. I like that our official reviews, on record reviews of last year's Raptors, the 2021, 2022 Raptors, or 2022, 2023 Raptors, are from Masai, quote, "I did not enjoy watching this team." From Nick Nurse, "Good luck with these guys." And from Fred VanVleet, "It felt like a job." Like, damn, okay, all right. Oh, man. I hope this season is not like that. But as you mentioned, a lot of that is tied to the wins and losses. But yeah, go check out the Woj Pod with Fred.
Yeah. I understand a little bit why I didn't get a text back about coming on our show. It's because he had the Woj Pod lined up. I guess that's a bigger show, a bigger audience. I don't know. Did Woj have Adam Silver on, Fred? I don't know.
Ooh. I mean, I'm sure Woj has gone on, or Adam has gone on Woj's pod. But
I'm sure he has.
I think Fred has done our pod like at least twice, if not 3 times. I think he even did it once when I was at Yahoo. So
nice.
Shouts to Fred, man. He was very accessible to media, except for last year, which similar situation. He rejected a lot of invites to come on the show, but turns out they were all miserable. So I totally understand why there was so little willingness to come on the show. Last item.
I got a couple quick hits here.
Okay, gotcha.
I mean, if there's leftover Knicks stuff, we can get to it later.
Okay,
I know you've got a giveaway to do here.
Yep.
There is a Leafs jersey hanging behind me because we forgot to change it over before the show, but also as a little nod, I guess, to my family. So I was home this weekend with family, most of the Newfie side of the family, and I got the annual, when are you going to cover hockey instead? Or why don't you cover hockey instead? So there's a little Leaf jersey for those people.
Gotcha.
Speaking of jerseys, though, I wasn't in town. You guys had a little get-together on the weekend. Alex had an event at In Vintage We Trust, and everyone was kind of wearing throwback gear. So Ali Khan from the Jays in a throwback purple, the purple and black Raptors jersey.
It was the Hakeem.
Yeah.
It was the Hakeem from the washed Hakeem versus washed Patrick Ewing.
Amazing.
Meme, where Hakeem is on the Raptors and Ewing is on the Magic.
Oof.
And they're posting each other up.
Yikes.
To what avail?
There was a jersey at that event, though, that I have to ask you guys for a ruling on.
Okay.
Faizal Khamisa, friend of the show.
Yeah.
Rolled up.
Yeah.
In a Faizal Khamisa jersey.
Yeah.
Is wearing your own jersey, is that a foul? Is there some swag to that, or is that a foul? Because it struck. I saw in one of the pictures Khamisa on the back, and I was like, well, maybe that's maybe Alex is doing a bit and wearing one of the jerseys he collects from Bourne and everyone else.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
then I saw another picture and Faisal's wearing the Faizal Khamisa jersey. Where do you guys weigh in on this?
I think I think it depends on what you have done in your career. If Kawhi wanted to walk around in Toronto with the Kawhi Leonard 2 jersey, I would worship the ground he stands on.
It was free. Stand. Why wouldn't I wear it?
He's like, I got this from work. But yeah, no, I'm totally in on it. But Alex is tapped in apparently. So what's your thoughts on this?
Yeah, good afternoon, guys. You know what? We can only ask one person. Let me try to see if Faizal Khamisa is available.
Oh, really?
To kind of explain the story behind the jersey.
Okay.
So maybe we'll try to get him to tap in the second hour.
Oh,
okay.
A nice little teaser.
Well,
Faisal's always available to hit OMP.
He's literally 30 meters away.
Any place. So yeah. it was a really fun event though, and it was great to launch Prehistoric for the 20th time. But before we go to this break, I wanted to tell you that this Wednesday, December 6th, the Toronto Raptors will face off against the Miami Heat at 7:30 p.m. at Scotiabank Arena. Here's your chance to win tickets to check out the action. To enter for a chance to win 2 tickets, text Friday's code word OG, just 2 letters, O and G, to 590-590. Again, today's code word is OG. Text this into 590-590 right now to enter for your chance to win tickets to Wednesday's game. If you don't win with us, you can always secure your tickets to Wednesday's game at Ticketmaster.ca. That's going to be a really good one, man. Kyle Lowry, the Heat, coming into town, playing pretty well. Jaime Jaquez Jr., the rookie, looking really solid. So it'll be an exciting one. But we're going to take a quick break. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wim Lou. Continue to be joined by co-host Blake Murphy, who I have a piping hot French press coffee ready for Mr. Murphy. But we are also joined in segment 2 by one of my favorite people in the basketball game, just period, Tas Melas of No Dunks. What's going on, Tas? How you doing?
Well, Blakey, it's great to hear from you. It's great to see you pressing that French press live in front of me.
Yeah, let me just press it.
You press it halfway down and you pull it back up. Hey, that's your technique.
It's not the proper way to do it, but I don't know. I just like seeing the snow globe of the coffee grinds fall down. Blake, please take over, man. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, look, Will's trying to create a brand identity for Big Head Coffee, and he's still working on the finer points. Tas, in addition to being a host of No Dunks, you're also the host of No Bunts sometimes in the offseason. So before we do basketball, I got to check in with you, man. How are you enjoying, or how anxious are you with the Blue Jays Ohtani watch here?
Oh, I am extremely, extremely excited. It has to happen. It feels like all this conversation, it feels like it has to happen just to give Blue Jays fans a little something to be excited about. But they are up against the Dodgers and the Cubs. I mean, these are teams that have been rumored to be wanting Shohei Ohtani as well, and Los Angeles didn't pay anybody last offseason to give Shohei a ton of money. So I'm super excited, but I to be realistic, Blake, I don't think it's going to happen unless the Dodgers or Cubs make some sort of mistake where they say, okay, you've had the surgery. We'll give you this much money if you're going to be a hitter, and we'll give you a bonus if you're going to be a pitcher. And maybe another team comes along and guarantees both pitcher and hitter money, like the Blue Jays. That would be the only way I think it happens if the other teams make a mistake. But still excited for this possibility.
Yeah, it's nice to even be able to dream on it. And then, hey, as a backup dream scenario, you can trade for Juan Soto too. And this is the stuff that Lakers fans would do constantly if the NBA didn't have a salary cap. So,
the Photoshop. What the Jays are in the Photoshop era. No, it's funny, Taz, because the Raptors are so mid. We've pivoted. We've pivoted to hoping on other free agents. We used to hope for I guess Kawhi to stay, but now it's like, no, maybe we'll get Shohei. But yeah, it would be exciting. You got to move back if he comes.
Yeah, no, it's strange. I'm in Atlanta, and I'm excited about the Raptors being mid because you guys have to talk about it daily. I get to talk about it whenever I want. So I'm excited about the mid Raptors, to be completely honest. And everybody comes on and says, that's ridiculous, man. They got worse this offseason, but really, in my eyes, they got better.
Yeah. Okay. Well, hold on. Let me hear your perspective in that sense, because it's still not super exciting to watch, but also at the same time, maybe we're just all holding on to playoff every year, 50+ wins. Yeah. Everything's gonna be great no matter what, and we're kind of just not used to them being kind of just okay.
Yeah. It combined with the Blue Jays, just not even.
Oh, come on!
Having a playoff win, but the fact that the Raptors didn't go all in on Fred VanVleet to be the guy at the point guard spot, I think that was, at least it leaves the future open here to see what happens with the big three of Barnes and who the heck knows what happens this offseason.
Yeah, I was gonna say big three. I was like, big. That's big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. That's a big one. But OG and Pascal are they're thrown in there
Sure.
at this point. But at least they didn't buy into something that wasn't going to work out. That we saw what happened last year with Fred being who he was, and to go long term with Fred, it was going to be a 500 team no matter what. So I think at least they've opened the doors for potential future here.
So we'll pivot here to another team that is in a similar spot, but certainly a worse spot. And I know you guys did winners and losers of the weekend, as you always do. Oddly, a bit of a loser, despite winning 2 in a row, is the Chicago Bulls, who, have also reinvested in being a roughly 500, a play-in-ish core. They won those 2 games without Zach LaVine, who remains out for a little bit here. Always awkward when the Ewing theory kicks in. You play a little better without your best player. Not suggesting that here, but the Bulls are in a bit of a weird spot here. We're still too early, Tas, for trade season proper, but what do you make of where the Bulls are and Zach LaVine's kind of future or lack thereof within that?
Yeah, the Bulls are lacking right now. Their dreams are to be a 500 Raptors team. I think that's all they could possibly be. They did start the Zach LaVine era with Alonzo Ball at the point guard spot, and things were looking good in that first run. But now this current era, it is very strange to see Zach LaVine not playing that motivated, not being that excited when he's out there to be that number one guy. We are too far away to say that no team is willing to pay for him. I think all this talk that we're hearing right now that every team's offer for him ain't all that much is really just other teams hoping that they can work the Bulls down a little bit. But I think teams will be willing to give up a lot for Zach LaVine. And I think, when we look at past years, like the Donovan Mitchell rumors and all that, Zach LaVine may be the best player to be dealt in the next few months. And so I think the rumors are just trying to tell Karnisovas and the front office there, don't make us pay that much. But I think in the end they will, because I don't think there will be too many other players that will be available in the league.
Yeah, I feel like Zach might be a little undervalued. Like, I'm just saying, like, it's a guy who creates a lot of his own offense at a pretty high volume, at like a true shooting of well over 60% most seasons.
Good 3-point shooter. And I think, Tas, you're right. This is, teams trying to make sure the price is suitably low. And there is a lot of contract left on Zach LaVine, but still, This is the time of year where, who are these leaks coming from? What purpose might they serve? Yeah, it's probably the teams who might have interest in Zach LaVine who are like, he's not that good. Let's get that asking price down.
Yeah.
But at the same time, that lot of money that he's being paid is a lot of money. He's a guy who's extremely efficient when playing his game, but he has to be around certain type of guys. So he has to be traded by a team that has complementary guys that play D, that can be point guards that create other offense. Zach LaVine is a great scorer, but that's what he is, and he needs certain types of guys like the Lonzo Ball that made it work, like the point guards that are going to give up all of their energy to play defense for him. So I think it has to be a certain type of team that has like great defenders already. Like if I know this is really shoving it in here, but if he was available for the Raps to play along with a Schroeder and an OG and that type of thing, he would fit better just because of who they have around him.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. I do feel like essentially like maybe even 3 years ago, like stars were just automatically traded for like minimum 2-3 first round picks and then some expiring salaries. Like that's like the going price. And then now you see like what Bradley Beal went for Houston or for Phoenix over the summer. It's like this is kind of similar to that. I mean, I know Zach is younger, but maybe even similar-ish type of players. Yeah, some other winners and losers over the weekend. So the Mavericks go on a 30-0 run, and then they still lose to OKC. I mean, what do you make of it? Because I actually feel like the Mavericks, they kind of feel pretty good about it just because, like, the overall team this year just, like, clicks so much better than it was last year. I know they came back, their comeback fell short, but what are your thoughts on the Mavericks right now?
Well, the Mavs are buying into playing a different way this year. They are playing extremely fast, and instead of just moving into a Luka offense where it's just like 24 seconds of Luka handling the ball, they're a fast-paced team. So I think they are just trying to buy in. And they have Derek Lively at the center spot, which Luka is using to his strength. That weird Saturday night game. I'm glad there was a great Saturday night game because there's no Sunday NBA games because they're getting ready for this tournament. But that Saturday night game, that was everything. That was so good. They didn't have Kyrie Irving in that game. So for them to be down 111-87 early in that fourth quarter and then come back and take the lead, and then all of a sudden, for me, it was the Chet Holmgren show watching at the end. He was so great. He blocked a shot, and then he had to guard Seth Curry at the three-point line. Seth Curry got to the rim, and Chet just trailed him the entire way and was able to alter the shot. Then he had a dunk at the other end on a missed shot. Then he came back, blocked another shot. He had 4 blocks. And I mentioned Derek Lively. Even though Derek Lively dunked on his face earlier on in the game, Chet was so good to fight back. And he was phenomenal. And then Shea stole the ball to seal it for OKC to come back. But I do believe in the Mavericks a little bit in that they have a big and Lively who can play, and they're starting to buy into Jason Kidd's let's run type thing, and they're still looking for a little bit more support around Luka and Kyrie, but at the same time, the West is tough. So I think they are moving up, but a team like OKC, I think will be a more difficult team to play against because they have so many great defenders and so many great offensive players. Like I mentioned Chet, but he's probably the 4th best offensive guy on this team. Like with Shea and Jalen Williams and Josh Giddey, Chet just has his role that's defined extremely well, and he doesn't have to try too hard. But in this game, he really did seal it for OKC.
Yeah. My favorite thing about OKC right now, they have 11 players with a true shooting percentage above 60. 11 players.
You've got Davis going with the perfect shooting line in that one, 15 points in 11 minutes.
Yeah, that helped.
When even the guy you picked up because he was quote unquote the worst contract in the league is chipping in over a point a minute on perfect shooting off the bench, things are clicking for you.
Yeah, Casey Wallace hasn't missed a shot all year. His true shooting is 73% as a guard. How?
I love that guy. If he had to do more, I would love to see him on a team where he played more and had more of a role. They are stacked. Is that a mistake? 10 guys over 60%?
It's actually 11. I mean, look, there's a couple of players like Lindy Waters has played 62 minutes. Trey Mann has played 47. Olivier Sarr, my favorite right back at Aston Villa, has 54 minutes played. Davis Bertans, 57 minutes played. So there's 4 guys in there that are obviously low minutes, but that still leaves them with 7 full-time rotation players with a true shooting of over 60. It's unbelievable. 2 over 70 right now.
By the way, just to close the note on true shooting and the Thunder there, Pokashevsky, over his 3 G League seasons, has a true shooting percentage of 40%. So don't expect him to be added to that list anytime soon.
It's tough. Yeah. Big Skeets has been struggling down there for a couple.
Tas, I got one more from the weekend. Mikal Bridges has this monster 42-point outburst in a Nets win. He's averaging 23, 6, and 4. Another guy who's close, Will, to the 60% true shooting mark. He's doing this on 27% usage rate. Prior to the trade last year, he was under 20% usage. So he's gone from, about an average player in terms of offensive role to taking on, what would normally be about a 1B or high number 2 usage rate. And he's done so efficiently. What do you think we can learn from Mikal Bridges' situation where a new start like that, it did never seem like he was unhappy or a poor fit in Phoenix. He was just a very good role player, but he's been able to very quickly grow beyond very good role player in Brooklyn.
Yeah, I was wondering what he would become after the trade, and he was unleashed after the trade. And I think he has to go back to that guy he was in the second half of last season. They've actually limited him a little bit more this season. Blake, you mentioned that 26% usage rate. He was at 30 last year, and he was a machine, and he was extremely efficient. He's shooting a little less this season. They're employing a few different things. Well, Ben Simmons was playing for first time, starting with him. He didn't play with him at the second half last season. They're unleashing Cam Thomas off the bench. So I don't think they're going to Mikal Bridges enough because He is an extremely great player. Period. I was surprised. I didn't know if that trade was going to work out for them in the way that they thought. But he was scoring 26 points per game last year. After he got dealt, he's so long, so big. He can get to his spots on the floor and just let it rip. I guess he learned some things from watching Kevin Durant. I don't know, but he is. He's only had a couple 40-point games this season, and his points per game has dropped. He needs to get more going. I think that's what Jacques Vaughn, now that Ben Simmons is out for long term, is just going to go to. It's miraculous how good he is going from. Yeah, he was the third option at times below Devin Booker and Chris Paul, but this dude is I thought he would be an all-star for sure this season, and if he's going to continue to play like that, he will be. But it didn't start that way this season. It's been a bit of a strange start with Brooklyn with Ben Simmons out. Head coach Jacques Vaughn saying, no, he's fine. His back's fine. But he's out long term. He hasn't played for a full month. The back injury is the same injury he's had the last couple of years.
Yeah, your back's always fine when you get an epidural. It's just an everyday thing. You just get an epidural for your back because you're fine. No, but I actually do think that does help them with their spacing as well. It's funny with Mikal Bridges too. It's just like sometimes I watch it and I'm like, okay, players I think maybe 10, 15 years ago, if they can get to this point where they can score 26 and a quarter, outscore a winning team in the Magic who had been on a great run by himself in a quarter, it's like they got to have some go-to moves or like they're like deadly in these one or two spots. And something about Mikal Bridges where I'm like, I feel like he's like kind of good across the board, but I wouldn't say he has like a killer go-to move that no one can get to. It doesn't have the hang pull that KD has, for example, anything like that. But he's still able to score at that high of a level. I think it kind of speaks to just how well balanced his game is, but also the offensive environment in the NBA in general. But speaking of the NBA, in-season tournament begins tonight. Your thoughts? Boston at Indiana, New Orleans at Sacramento.
Well, I'm excited like everybody else. I think they've done well painting the every single floor out there different colors. Gen X, Gen Y, Gen Z, they're all into it. It's helped.
This really is what generations are into? I didn't know.
Yeah, they are. They're into basketball mattering in November before Christmas, and I think it's gotten everybody excited. I wonder what's going to happen with Boston and the Pacers because Haliburton did miss his last game on Saturday. Upper respiratory infection, not a lower respiratory infection, just an upper respiratory infection. But he's questionable for tonight, and it's such a unique team with how many guys are operating around Haliburton, how great they are offensively, and I wonder if it's just ideal for the in-season tournament fan base because that defense is going to allow a lot of points. So Boston's going to put up some points tonight, no matter who they're playing. But the Pacers, I think, are going to give them a tough road here because when Haliburton was out on Saturday, they found their way. They looked like the team with Haliburton. They had 4 guys score 20 points, and that's tough to do, and they were able to do that. So I still like Boston in that game, but I'm excited for that game. I'm excited for the Pels and the Kings because the Kings ain't all that big, and the Pels are, and they do use that to their advantage. So I think they should be able to deal with Sacramento. They've already beat them twice this year, but the Kings are a great home team.
Yeah, it'll be a nice clash of styles. That we've officially now had Skeets, Trey, you, Tess, and Black Dragon Rule on this season already. So I think we need to get JD at some point. So we'll let you know if we need to get JD. But appreciate you, Tess, and
man.
Yeah, thanks for your time.
Appreciate you guys doing what you do.
All right. Okay. We're going to take another break. Been your host, Will. We've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. When we come back, we will look at the most desperate teams in the league with Michael Pina. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, William Loom, trying out a radio host voice for once. Continue to be joined by producer and co-host. Not producer and co-host, sorry, just co-host Blake Murphy. I got to just read the rundown. And we are joined on the line by friend of the program, Michael Pina of The Ringer. What's up, man? How you doing?
How you doing, Will? How you doing, Blake?
Good, man.
We're doing well. We're doing well. So we were thinking about what we're going to talk about today, and I was going through your Twitter timeline. Everyone, go follow Michael. You just search his name, you'll find it. But you had a tweet in there where you shared a clip of Bobby Marks saying that he wouldn't be surprised if the Pistons were to jump into the Zach LaVine sweepstakes. And you said, I think he wanted to see if Ivy could be procured in going to Chicago. I think that would fit. They definitely need a point guard long term. Ivy was a high pick last year, 5th overall, had some pretty promising moments. And then I just thought about it, and I was like, wait a second, why are the Pistons even considering doing this? They got to be so desperate. And that got me to the point where I was like, what are the most desperate teams in the NBA? So we'll start there with you, Michael. We have ours. We've already locked in our picks, but I'm curious to see what you picked as, one of the most desperate teams in the league right now.
I think it's the Golden State Warriors for me.
Ooh, I like this. Okay.
So since they beat the Pistons on November 6th, which was about a month ago, they're 3-9 with the 23rd best offense, 20th defense, net rating minus 3.3 points per 100 possessions. They are the only team in the Western Conference this season that has not won a game when trailing at halftime. They're 0-7 when that happens. They are minus 11 with Steph Curry on the court this season. That's just overall. And they're plus 18 when Curry sits. The Steph, Clay, Draymond trio, they're getting killed when those three guys are on the court together. Gary Payton II tore his calf. Chris Paul has nerve damage. They're just not, they blew that game against the Clippers over the weekend. They had another heartbreaker a couple days ago or a few days before that against the Kings. Steve Kerr said that his team was not in a free-for-all, which is really not what you want to hear your head coach say in December in a presser. So they are in a really, they're in a, they're desperate to me because they have championship aspirations, and Steph Curry is still amazing individually. And so I just feel like something has to happen for this team right now. And I think every single player except Curry should be, they should be taking calls about every single, no one's off the table except Curry. I think that it's all hands on deck for them, and anything could happen.
You're in a bad way when the brightest spot of your season so far is Brandon Podziemski, and he looks like the Gen Z Mad Men meme of John Hamm with the curly hair on top. He is the plus minus god so far this season, though. They've had monster plus minus whenever he's out there. Michael, flowing off of this, I agree that they're a desperate team. They're a desperate team because they're playing poorly, because their core is 35, 33, and 33. They've got all this money still outlaid to Steph and Draymond, and a huge kind of franchise and fan base altering decision with Clay coming at the end of this year. My question for you that flows from this is, they are in this desperate situation in part because of the economics of continuing to reinvest in this core that you believe in and you don't want to break up because it has so much equity with the franchise. Is the answer to this to peel off of that? And, salary cap wise, you have to move something out to get something. What is the answer, and how uncomfortable these conversations have to get for the Warriors?
It's a great question. I don't know what Clay and Draymond, I don't know what their value is on the trade market. So if you're trying to improve as an organization, like Clay is on a big money expiring contract, I don't know who's going to take that, what the value is there. Draymond just signed an extension, and he hit like 4 threes in the first quarter against the Clippers the other day, but otherwise, outside of that ecosystem, I wouldn't be really trying to take on Draymond Green at this point in his career. Still a really great defensive presence, but away from Steph Curry, away from just the Splash Brothers and Steve Kerr. And that's a big risk at that money. So for me, it's like, you kind of just got to double down. And in the process, like, the way I would just spin it is we're doubling down on Steph, and because he's the oldest one of the bunch, and I would be willing to move Kuminga, Moody, the plus minus god Pajimski, like anyone with draft equity, because as long as Steph is this good, he's kind of the reason that all of this has happened, this dynasty, this historic run. And they kind of owe it to him above anybody else to stay in contention, I think. And so that's the guy I would still be trying to build around, because so long as he's on your team and he's playing this well, you technically have a shot. And so that's kind of what I'd be thinking about. But like Wiggins, like what can we get for Wiggins? Those are more of the players that I'd be willing to, or I think could get me something on the market, even though Wiggins has been absolutely terrible this season.
Well, Will, let's pivot there. And a team that I think you're going to pick for your most desperate has a piece that a lot of these contending and more desperate teams are probably going to get into a mini bidding war over in Bojan Bogdanovic. Are the desperate Pistons desperate enough to sell off of him? Or are you thinking they're desperate, they got to add?
Oh, they're so desperate they might add. That's the thing. Yeah, Bogdanovic obviously would be a nice addition to most contenders. I don't think he starts most places, to be honest, even though he is still a really, really good shooter, but he's just older. You know, I feel like for a contender, he's probably more of off the bench piece. I thought you were going to pivot into his boss trying to trade Pascal for Kuminga and Wiggins. No, that's made a lot of the rounds here. People angry. They're like, how come every time we trade for a Canadian, it's never Shea and it's always Wiggins? I'm sorry, Shea is not available for trade unless you have basically Wemby to trade or something. But yeah, I mean, the Pistons are the one that I picked for most desperate, mostly because I was looking at the tweet and I was like, let me look more at the Pistons. So
they're also on pace for the worst record in the history of the NBA. So it's not like you're making a far reach here that they might be desperate to win 15 games.
So they're 2-18. As you mentioned, that is on pace for less than 15 wins on the season.
Way less.
Their last 5 seasons for the Pistons in terms of win total, 20, 20, 23, and then 17. So they're averaging a straight 20 across 4 seasons of wins. In the last calendar year, we've brought this up a couple of times. They've had 3 separate 11-game plus losing streaks in the calendar year. They're on a current 17-game losing streak. Their top win shares player, and whatever, win shares is like, it's hard to get a win share when you only have 2 wins. But the top win shares player on the Pistons is Marvin Bagley III, which is I was shocked by that one. I looked up just because I'm a sicko, the Pistons crunch time. Numbers. So
have they even been in crunch time? Like, have they had a game plus minus 5 minutes?
This is the thing for the Pistons. They've actually been in some close games, and largely speaking, they've lost all of them. So in games that have come down to within 5 points in the last 5 minutes, that's happened 10 times with them this season. They're 1-9 in those 10 games. The Pistons' offensive rating in crunch time. This is already in the rundown for me and Blake, so I just want you to, Michael, to potentially guess. What do you think the Pistons' offensive rating is in crunch time this year?
I cheated and just looked it up, and I'm flabbergasted at this number.
It's 61, which 61. It's unbelievable. But when you also break down, okay, what does 61 look like in offensive rating? Because like typical offensive rating nowadays, like 115 in that range. So we're talking about half that. When you look at the raw percentages, they're 20% from the field, including 15% from 3 in crunch time. How is that even possible? Is my question. Then I looked it up. This one we have a harder time looking at. So I was thinking back in the last 5 years. Okay, who is the Pistons' leading scorer in the last 5 seasons? Because I feel like you can kind of do this exercise with pretty much any team in the league and figure out who it is. Michael, would you want to guess at who the Pistons' leading scorer in the last 5 years is?
Wow. Like Alec Burks?
That's a good guess, but no. Another wing player. That is, I guess he's no longer on the team, but was with the team for a long time.
Jeremy Grant.
That's great. That's a great guess. That's number 2, which I was quite surprised that Jeremy Grant was on there. It's Sadiq Bey at 2,900 points is their leading scorer for the last 5 years. They traded Sadiq Bey for James Wiseman last year. James Wiseman, despite being number 2 overall pick, is playing 11 minutes per game for them and is their 5th string center. I'm not even kidding. And then I was thinking back on this more and more, and I was like, wait, I think I saw one tweet because like I'm curious in terms of like, okay, what is the human experience of going through a 2020, 23, 17 stretch, of wins and then going to watch a 61 offensive rating? What's the human experience, especially for someone who's covering the team? So I found this person named Koo. They're the host of Locked On Pistons, who provides daily coverage for the Pistons. And he had a tweet. This is 4 days ago. He said, trade Killian for Chetty or McDermott. Trade Wiseman in a second for Gallinari. Burks in a second for Kennard. I try to get Pat Will / Drummond from Chicago. Probably would go after Jeremy aggressively now. Touch base with Utah and Laurie. Check in on Rui. Watch for THJ. Now, obviously, some of the names later on that list were getting better. But when he said and started with, let's hope to get Chetty, let's hope to get Gallinari, let's hope to get Kennard. And I think this is in earnest. I don't think this is sarcastic. That just broke my heart because I'm like, damn, this is really tough. Look, a shopping list should not start with those guys.
Asking for Danilo Gallinari and Andre Drummond, I had to double check if this tweet was from 2018.
Yeah, no, it's from November 30th, 2023. I think they lost their 17th game or 16th game.
Michael, where are you at on the Pistons, man?
They're terrible. I feel bad mostly for Cade Cunningham. I love Cade Cunningham. I did a story on him his rookie season. And just you talk about 2018, like their offense and just their lineups that Monty Williams is throwing out there. It's like 2007, like starting Jalen Duren and Isaiah Stewart still in the front court. The spacing is atrocious. He turns the ball over a ton. Some of that's on him. Some of it's just on he has no room to operate, and he runs a ton of pick and roll, and he plays in a crowd constantly. He gets blitzed. He gets two guys thrown at him all the time. And doesn't really have any reason to trust his teammates at this point either. So I feel bad for Cade. I think they've just done a disservice to him. It's a basketball crime. And I think that they are one of, if not the most dysfunctional organizations in basketball top down. And to hire Monty Williams with this roster, given their age and experience level and expectations, just never made any sense. Forget about how much money he's being paid. It never made any sense to bring him in. And you see that with that is reflected by how he's kind of treated someone like Jaden Ivey, whose confidence must be in the gutter right now, or as low as it's been since he started playing basketball, where he's just kind of getting yanked around the rotation and in and out of it. And I don't know, they're abysmal. You'd love to see them try to. I mean, Isaiah Livers is like an okay 3-point shooter, and he's indispensable on this team right now, which kind of speaks or just kind of says it all offensively. And they foul and they commit by far the most fouls in the NBA. Like it's not even the margin isn't even like close to who is in second. Damn. All right. And so they're just atrocious right now, and I don't see a path to getting out of where they are anytime soon beyond like Asar Thompson suddenly shooting the ball like vintage Klay Thompson and without losing any of his athleticism. Like I don't know what they do.
And Asar Thompson, who has been by far their biggest bright spot this year, has lost his starting job, and the last couple games has played barely any minutes relative to what he was doing before. Now, he didn't play particularly well in those games, but when you have a high-performing rookie who's been basically the only guy trying to keep up with Cade in terms of having some semblance of competitiveness, and you yank him from the starting lineup while he's averaging almost a double-double, I don't get what the plan is there, and I do wonder if, if they're not desperate to add, if they are a different kind of desperate, whatever that looks like, if, they need to trade Bojan like yesterday so that he's not taking 30 minutes a game from, this prayer that some of these guys develop. Like Marcus Sasser can be a bench guard, fingers crossed, because that's what their hopes look like right now.
I mean, I think it's just prudent, but also at the same time, like, we talked about it in the first segment where Fred talked about, his decision to leave Toronto and go to Houston, which, again, you were one of the first, if not the first person to bring that up. So we always got to give you your flowers on that one. That was like January. You called that last year on the show. But, Fred talked about sort of the culture changing in Toronto and also wanting to change the culture in Houston. And that's so much of like what Ime was brought into Houston to do, was to bring in that toughness, trash talk LeBron to his face, which is kind of sick, to be honest. But also you need someone on the court to help you sort of extend that culture. And I do think that like no matter what happens this season with the Rockets, their culture has changed. You take them much more seriously. They take basketball much more seriously. I think they wanted to do the same thing with Monty Williams coming in, but they didn't bring anybody in terms of like talent, veterans who have won in situations into their team. And you can't just pay the coach a mid-level and expect him to change the whole team. Like that's really not what's going to happen, especially since he's kind of just floundering and kind of just changing lineups at will. So this seems like a miserable situation all around. Blake, what's your down bad team in the NBA right now?
So you mentioned the Pistons are 1-9 when they get into crunch time scenarios. They only have 2 wins overall. The one team that they beat in a crunch time scenario was the Chicago Bulls.
Oh.
And the Chicago Bulls kind of kickstarted this conversation as well because Bobby Marks speculated that Zach LaVine, maybe they kicked the tires on that. I look at this Bulls team. They are, a worse version of what the Raptors have done here in running back a 500-ish team a couple times because the Bulls are older. They don't have a Scotty Barnes. They haven't been, I know they won the play-in matchup last year, but they haven't been particularly strong. They have one winning season in the last 7 years. And the one draft piece that they have to show for that is Patrick Williams, who as the number 4 pick, could not work out a rookie scale extension, got yanked from the starting lineup for a while there, has been very, very up and down. And because they've continued to reinvest in these pieces, I don't think they're headed for, if they do sell, a Jazz and OKC style restocking of the cupboards. I think you are, we talked about Zach LaVine's, price, the salary that he still carries. Nikola Vucevic, who they just re-upped this offseason. DeMar, who a lot of teams would really like to have, I'm sure, but has a large enough salary that a trade is complicated. Their best trade asset is actually Alex Caruso, who, by the way, just got hurt on Saturday. So I see this team as, one of the only teams in the league that doesn't have a clear we're winning now or we're on the upswing or a tanking. And I don't really see the path to being competitors. And I don't really see a path to retooling that isn't a really, really long-term one. Now, I guess the one thing that could change that, Michael, you tweeted the other day about maybe being back on Patrick Williams Island. Give me the elevator pitch for not being out on Williams at this point.
I saw a sick crossover dribble and I just had to get the tweet off. No, he's been, relative to what he was earlier in the season when it was just, I think it was DeMar who had a buzzer beater, or Caruso had a buzzer beater for a walk-off win. And there was footage of Patrick Williams just not celebrating with his teammates and
that was
just
against the Raptors.
Completely out of it. Yeah, I think it was against the Raptors. Yeah,
that's right.
And to go from there to the last 4, 5, 6 games, I've actually been watching the Bulls for some sick reason, and he's been super aggressive, going downhill, attacking the basket. His defense against Zion, his defense against Giannis in their last 2 wins was actually pretty relatively solid. And you saw just glimpses of the fact that they took this guy 4th overall with hope that he could be this athletic mini Kawhi Leonard type of player. And that's just a silly comparison to even say out loud right now. But you do see the physical tools, when he hits threes, which he has been kind of doing a little bit lately, it looks really good. When he drives closeouts and makes a play, it looks really good. I was really high on him 2 years ago, and then I'm not really at that level of optimism, but he is still technically 22 years old, which I think a lot of people do forget about also. So there's still definitely room for improvement. I think his situation has been just god awful, and it's no coincidence that I think he's been playing his best basketball with Zach LaVine out of the lineup.
Yeah, he's a guy that, obviously he has very much underperformed the number 4 pick. The fact that he reportedly wanted a very big contract on a rookie scale extension is a little silly to me. But at the same time, Michael, if I were another team, absolutely kick the tires on him as a redraft new situation candidate as an RFA this year. If they, I'm sure they qualify him just because of the, the asset investment today. Will, where are you at on where the Bulls are?
Yeah, I mean, like, you know what? Obviously they got to tear it down. They should move the parts. I think the scary thing for pretty much everybody is just like you end up in a situation like the Pistons, right? I mean, like obviously that's not all rebuilds. If you do the rebuild right, you could be OKC, and everyone would want to be OKC. But like, I think that's the scary part. I think especially when you look at the personal level, it's like, is it possible to rebuild under the same management? Because they brought in this management group, and they brought in the likes of DeMar DeRozan. They brought in Nick Vucevic. They drafted some of these guys. So you're asking these people to admit that they have essentially failed in their original plans, which typically led to these people getting fired. So, I think back to like when the Raptors way back in the day were also floundering. They were like midseason. They're like, you know what? Let's trade for Rudy Gay. Let's trade for Rudy Gay. Let's see what happens. And I think that was Brian Colangelo's last move as a Raptor GM. It's just like once you go through one of these rebuilds and it doesn't work out, you're for sure getting let go. So I feel bad for the Bulls in some ways because of the Lonzo thing. It's that's something out of their control, and that's something that seemed to have really worked for them. But they also like to look back on the Lonzo era, like they look back on the Derrick Rose era. It's like, no, I mean, come on, Lonzo was like a really good glue player who like did a lot of things that this team needed to function. But like your franchise can't ride on Lonzo Ball, So anyway, it's a tough situation all around. Like I see here something about the curse. What is this?
Oh yeah,
what is this?
All right, are we ready to pivot there? Okay, so
we can talk other things too. I'm just curious.
So I have two questions for the curse is a new show with Nathan Fielder and Emma Stone.
Okay.
If you've seen anything Nathan Fielder before the rehearsal or Nathan for You, it's that same level of dry, very very dry comedy, and in this case a much darker one. So without spoiling anything, there is a scene in a recent episode, Michael, where a little girl curses Nathan Fielder with just a little curse. The whole idea is the curse is small. You don't actually want to cause harm to the person. It's just a silly one. And in this case, it's, his spaghetti dinner is missing the chicken, and he orders a chicken pasta, and it comes without chicken. And this little girl cursed them, and that's it. So, Michael, in the spirit of the curse, and again, you can't do something large and harmful. It has to be something that feels small and inconsequential. You are on the court, or you're a GM or something like that. You can give a mini, tiny curse to an opponent. What are you going with?
So you asked me that question to prep, and one of the other questions you asked me was which NBA front office is most likely to fall for a Nathan Fielder prank.
Yeah.
And can I answer that question instead?
Yeah, well, it's the Knicks, right?
No, it's the Lakers. It's Rob Pelinka. Rob Pelinka, he has these genius talks every so often where he invites a celebrity to speak to the team for whatever reason. Lord knows what they can impart on professional basketball players.
The Lakers are doing little TED Talks for their team?
Oh yeah, it's a thing. They had Will Smith.
I gotta look this up.
I'm blanking on anyone else, but yeah.
Oh, okay, all right. Interesting.
So they bring Nathan Fielder in, and then he proceeds to give. So what he did for Nathan for You is he would give advice to small businesses to try to get them that were struggling to get them on the up and up. So Nathan would come in, he would talk to Jeannie and Rob Pelinka, and he would give them ideas about how to cut costs without making any substantial salary dumps. And I would just like imagine them getting rid of all their cold tubs, or strategically to try to, their 3-point percentage has been terrible. So instead of practicing with regulation size basketballs, Nathan would suggest that they practice with balls that are slightly larger, so that when they get in an actual game, the rim looks bigger than it actually is. And just like how baseball players use heavier on deck bats, like I could totally see Nathan Fielder convincing Rob Pelinka to at least have a conversation with Darvin Ham about that. And that just inspired laughter in me internally. So I wanted to kind of get that one out there. So thank you, Blake. I appreciate the opportunity.
It is a great visual.
It is a fun visual. And I thought the Knicks, I would pick the Knicks, who they would be most susceptible to it, just because
very fair.
They're the Knicks. Like they paid a first-round pick for Andrea Bargnani, and I'm still not sure that wasn't a bit. So I think they'd be pretty susceptible here. This lawsuit that they are doing outside of the NBA might be this exact scenario. Some lawyer pitched them on something that's just going to cost them tons and tons of billable hours, and is going to do nothing for them. That actually makes a lot of sense when you're thinking like that. I'm like,
Why is James Dolan doing this? And
yeah, this is a Nathan
Someone
Fielder
probably
bit.
did talk them into doing this.
Yeah,
right.
Me, Nathan Fielder, and Alex graduated from some of Canada's top business schools with really good grades, Michael.
Wow. No, that's good.
He's a UVic guy. He went to University of Victoria.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, that's a great trivia. It'll come useful one day, 5 years down the line at a random bar.
Okay, so I know you don't have any thoughts on this because you're not a Nathan Fielder. You're not up on the curse.
I thought the little curse would be someone talks Messiah into getting another 6'9" forward who doesn't really shoot well. But like that, what you're missing is one more of these guys.
Yeah,
I think that would be a nice little curse too.
Buddy, the trade deadline's not far away.
No.
It's 2 months and 4 days away. Get ready to learn Jonathan Kuminga, buddy.
Honestly, when I'm watching Kuminga, I'm like, you know what? I could be talked into this.
I could fix him.
I'm not. I could fix him, man. He's definitely a more consistent shooter than Precious, but that's not exactly a bar. That's
Okay, Michael, before we let you go here, one basketball question. They don't play tonight. They play tomorrow. Phoenix Suns. You wrote this terrific piece at The Ringer about Devin Booker potentially being the best point guard in the league right now. And I know there is Tyrese Halliburton. This is his year. People don't think of Devin Booker as a traditional point guard necessarily. But the only players in basketball averaging more assists are Halliburton, Trae Young, Nikola Jokic, and Fred VanVleet. Michael, how high are you on the Suns right now, even without having seen how all this works with Bradley Beal?
I'm very high. I mean, health is obviously their big variable for sure. And the fact that their big three has not played a second together is a little concerning. But me personally, I'd rather have this happen in December than in April or May. So assuming Bradley Beal can get right, what I've seen so far from them, they look really good. Like offensively, there's just nothing you can do with them when Devin Booker has it going. The fact that he's embraced this playmaking role and has excelled in it. Even when Kevin Durant is not available to play or not in the game or whatever, you look at the players who are around Devin Booker and he has been nothing short of brilliant. I love their offense, love their spacing. They have really effective three-point shooters up and down. The team, Eric Gordon has played really well this season. He looks really young and spry. And KD is averaging like 32 points a game and like 50-50 hundreds shooting splits or whatever it is. Like he's just a fountain of youth and just truly remarkable. So I like them a lot. Defensively, obviously, there are questions for sure. And we don't need to talk about those. But I think in a playoff series, if they get everything humming offensively, they're just going to be dropping like 125, 130 a night, and I don't know how you slow them down.
Yeah, it's kind of terrifying, especially now that Yusuf Nurkic is also kind of rounding into form, finishing more in the post. They're finding ways to
against the Raptors.
Yeah, no, but listen, Devin Booker wasn't the best point guard in the league against the Raptors. That's for sure.
No, he wasn't.
OG Anunoby, baby.
That's because I wrote about him. You know, I did Toronto a solid with to bring it back. Yeah,
that's pretty good. All right, Michael, we appreciate you. Everybody go follow him on Twitter, follow your work over at The Ringer. And we'll call you again in the near future.
Will, I appreciate you. Blake, love you. Thanks, guys.
All right. We're going to take our last break for today. I've been your host, Willow. You've been listening to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. Welcome back to The Raptors Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network. I'm your host, Wayne Blue. For the fourth and final segment, we have brought in producer and co-host Alex Wong, who is going to show his hairline for the first time in at least a year, and he's going to take us around the NBA. What's going on, Alex?
What's up, guys? Oh my God, this looks insane. Yeah, it's a little hot in here today, so shouts to Sportsnet Facilities for raising the rent on us and making us hustle even harder. So Blake, I know in the first segment you had questioned whether Faizal should be allowed to wear a jersey with his own name on it.
Allowed, I'm fine. He can do whatever he wants. I was just asking you particularly as like a jersey and just generally sports gear connoisseur.
As a money waster.
If that's a foul or if that's a fair play.
I feel like that's for each personal, individual to decide. So I believe we do have Faizal Khamisa tapping in on Zoom from down the street. So if Faizal is available here, we would love to chat with him. Faizal Khamisa, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, please don't like dock my.
Oh my god!
Sorry, was this inappropriate?
For the podcast listeners, Faizal has showed up in his Kenya hockey jersey, and he's got multiple Khamisa jerseys on right now.
No, you're right. I should be professional. Hold on. Okay. All right, we're good.
Oh no, he's now got a Khamisa number 6 Raptors jersey on backwards.
Yeah.
Yo, what's good, man? You want to come in studio? Like, just hop in 2 minutes?
Yeah, I'll be there.
So answer the question for us. You know, you showed up in a Faizal Khamisa Kenya hockey jersey on Saturday.
It is a very nice jersey. I will give it that. It's a cool look.
Thank you, but I would like to explain the context a little bit because I feel like it's unfair. Like I'm not rolling around the streets of Toronto just hanging out with my name on a one, right? There was a theme to this event that Alex had, the 14th, I think, book event for Prehistoric, available everywhere right now. And he said you have to pull up in a jersey, but specifically like a vintage jersey. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I've got to be different here. Okay, I've got to be a little bit different. I don't want to, I could do a throwback Raptors jersey. I got the Vince Carter OG ones hanging out over there. I got some soccer kits hanging out over here, but I'm like, no, I want a conversation starter here. Okay, so what better than the Kenya Ice Lions jersey? Now, to be fair, this isn't like I didn't go to Kenya and play ice hockey there. There's an organization that started an ice hockey endeavor in East Africa, which is unbelievable to me. And I have family that live out there. We have family origin that come from East Africa as well. And the idea of ice hockey being played there is just unfathomable. I know this is a basketball show, so I apologize for bringing that sport into this. But when my cousin sent me this a couple years ago, I was like, man, this is awesome. And there's very few places for me to wear this, and this felt like the place to do so. And it was a unique jersey, Alex. I think you can vouch for that. I don't think anybody else has this. In fact, I went as far as to say nobody else in Canada has this. And I'm pretty confident in that. But yeah, I was proud of it. And I know it says my name on it, but I didn't care. I didn't care. Could have been AK. Could have been AK that I was rocking.
That's a great explanation and a great backstory. So I'm sold on it. By the way, Alex, I don't know if you caught this, but the undershirt he's wearing under this jersey is the cover story shirt from your last.
Oh my God, this guy's a walking ad. I think the bigger problem is how many Khamisa jerseys do you own, brother?
Yeah. Well, I mean, actually, the better question is how many Khamisa jerseys do you own, Alex?
I got one and currently working on 2 others. Yeah. So.
Yeah. And anyways,
is there another scenario where you would rock a Khamisa jersey? Like, when is it acceptable outside of Saturday for you to rock a Khamisa, you think?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. I think if I were to actually get on the ice and play like hockey or skate, I would rock one of the throwback, like either the Applewood jerseys that I used to play in, which is this one, or these ones. I have a couple here, obviously, or this one, because I think this one is a really cool standout piece on whatever surface of ice you're doing. Will, you good over there? You're just kind of nodding your head. I know you got the jersey backwards, so everyone's laughing at me, but like yours is hanging out there too.
No, I'm just enjoying this fashion advice.
What jersey did you wear on Saturday?
What did I wear? I wore an AI jersey, but it was like...
was it real or fake?
It was real. I got it at a venture store, and it was like all white in the top and all red on the bottom. It kind of looked like a popsicle.
Nice.
But yeah, for some reason, I have a lot of AI jerseys. But no, I mean, what about this backward jersey trend? I feel like people are doing this more and more.
What trend? Just because there's 2 guys on the show doing it right now? That doesn't make it a trend, bro.
I think this is a trend, bro.
What are you talking about? I have not seen this on the streets since high school, man.
Yeah, if Faizal, talk to me about the backwards jersey trend.
2001, the fabulous era, FABOLOUS. You were rocking jersey backwards wherever you went. I know that.
I had a Jerry Rice Raiders jersey that I wore backwards. Yeah.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that was the one that I did.
That's tough.
So I love not being on screen, by the way.
I think it fits the player empowerment era. It's like, we all cheer for laundry, but, these guys are about the name on the back, not on the... Faizal Khamisa is about the name on the back, not the name on the front.
If you're a stan, because there's lots of like stan accounts online, but there's like just real life like stans of players. Like when KD came into town, there was like, I told the story a couple times now, but there's like dozens of different KD jerseys. If you're a player stan, you should wear the player's name on the front.
Yeah, I like that. I think the other question, I guess, for Will and Blake is, do you guys own jerseys with your name on the back?
That would require me to have actually played sports at any respectable level. So that's a no.
Okay.
Yeah.
What about you, Blake?
So from actually playing, no, Cambridge is not like these Toronto area leagues where all these guys kept their own jerseys. Like even playing rep, your jersey went back to Cambridge minor hockey at the end of the year and someone else wore it the next year. You weren't keeping your jerseys. So the only one I have is a Canada basketball one from a charity tournament. I think you played in the charity game last year as well, right, Faisal?
Yeah, that one's right here.
Yeah,
you really have a whole Khamisa collection.
That's
man.
the only one I have.
You know what? You know what? You're allowed to do whatever you want, man.
You know what? This is like I know you as a big soccer fan would appreciate this. There's a whole segment that they do on BT Sport called What I Wore. And it's like, they'll bring in a legend like David Beckham, and you'll go through all the jerseys of like, this is what I wore this year, and the attachment of Umbro this year in '97, and whatever. And here's my LA Galaxy. This is Faisal doing this as a broadcaster, which is incredible. So,
Will, I think Will, you'll appreciate this the most. What I wanted to wear if it wasn't for this, because I didn't want to wear a basketball jersey. I wanted to either do soccer or this Kenya jersey.
Sure.
It was going to be number 10, Colombia.
Yo,
Rodriguez.
you guys don't even know about this, man.
I don't.
This is like his Linsanity run.
Okay.
LeBron was tweeting like, "Oh, James Gang" or whatever, even though his name was James.
Oh,
which
man.
is still spelled James, obviously, but like, he had a generational for Colombia.
Just that goal in that World Cup, well, those goals in the World Cup, but this was an iconic kid back in the day because he was an iconic player in that World Cup. But I wanted to go off the board a little bit, and also long sleeves felt more appropriate given that it was cold.
Yeah, Faisal, I know you moved heaven and earth to make this happen, so want to keep you on for one more question here. Scotty Barnes showed up in a Christine Sinclair jersey on Friday, and he talked about it a little bit after the game, how he reached out to her, and they're going to do a little jersey swap. So if you were pulling up to pander to Canadian fans in the tunnel, which all-time like Canadian-related jersey would you pull up in?
I'm literally trying to see if the Christine Sinclair jersey is within reach.
Okay, brother. What is this, Joe LaPuma about jerseys right now?
You know what else would be cool? The Vancouver Whitecaps Davies jersey. For me, it's like,
nice.
Well, this one is nice, man. And this one is not going to come out of that frame because it's got a little writing on it. But it would be one of the Canadian soccer legends as well. Maybe the Craig Forrest, given that I got to work with him back in the day.
No, we talking trees right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
We can do for a while. I feel like I've overstayed my visit here.
No, don't worry. Just stay. You're good. You're good on camera presence. Blake, what are you rocking?
Yeah, it would depend on the sport. What I'm showing up for. If it's hockey, I'll probably go Marie-Philippe Poulin. In baseball, I thought about this one a lot. And Votto's too recent, and he's not done yet. A Larry Walker Expos jersey, though, could go pretty hard, I think. A Canadian player, former Canadian team. And then on the basketball side, the jerseys are so ugly from this event, but a Steve Nash year 2000 Canada Olympic jersey.
Yo, I love that, man. I was gonna say Todd McCullough from that era. What about you, William?
I don't know if I'm that patriotic. I don't have any candidates.
But you're pandering. It's not about the patriotism.
No.
Pander.
You're pandering. Like, what's gonna get the most attention for people to be like, oh my God, Will pulled up in this. He showed love to Canada. Yeah. Okay, man. Just pull up in your Yao Ming Team China, okay?
Yeah. The first jersey I thought of was Yi Jianlian.
Okay. That has nothing to do with this segment, bro.
I have no answers.
Okay.
I genuinely have no answers. I'm sorry.
All right, Faisal, anything else you'd like to add as the former global ambassador of the show?
I was going to say, I can't believe the first appearance in 2 years was to talk about my wardrobe choice at Alex's book event. But you know what? Fair enough. Happy to be on with you guys. So thank you.
No, I love you, bro. Text me in 5 minutes.
I'll see you at a Rapa nearby.
Sir Charles over here.
By the way, I have the answer for Will, I think. It scratches the Raptors hardcore itch and to what you were getting to, the China itch. A Mengi Batir Raptors jersey.
Oh,
that's pretty good. Yeah, I like that.
If you put some thought into it, you could have answered that.
It's no Joffrey Lavernier OKC jersey, but it's pretty high up there.
Yeah,
shouts to my inner Mongolian king right there.
Yeah. All right, we're gonna proceed, even though it's really hot in here. So you guys mentioned that Darko is offering a free pizza party if the Raptors win 3 in a row. So win 3 in a row or dinner with Jay-Z. So, you know the Shohei Ohtani, sweepstakes are going on. There's huge odds going on. Dodgers are the favorites. So, like, a Jays are second, blah, blah, blah. So I want to put up some odds here for dinner spots that the Raptors are going to go to when they win 3 straight and get your thoughts. I think the favorite is Pi at -250.
Well, they've already done one at Pi.
They've done many of them at Pi. I think Garrett Temple showed up accidentally on Grady Dick's birthday night.
When you go to Pi, it's like you got to go downstairs first, and there's like a wall by the stairs, and the wall is just like of all the famous patrons that they had.
Yes.
Obviously, there's lots of famous patrons. It's like Basketball Reference for the Raptors, man.
No,
Every
it really
Raptor
is.
is on that wall.
Yeah.
Shouts to Pi.
So I'm saying Pi is the favorite at -250.
It's a good one.
I've got Harbor 60 as a +150. I think Harbor 60 Scotty has said as a favorite.
It's like right there, right? From I don't eat at these places except for Pi, but like it's like right there.
Yeah.
So.
Here's a question for you, Blake. So they win 3 straight, hopefully by February, and then they're like, okay, we're gonna go to this dinner. Who chooses the spot, you think? Because it's gonna be tough for like 15 guys to come to a group decision.
So this is where, because Darko's foot in the bill, I would place a long shot bet on a place like Bonami in Etobicoke, kind of Eastern European food. I don't know if it's
Like that.
technically Serbian food or it's just kind of a mix of modern European, but I would lean something like that because I'd have to feel like if you are buying the dinner, who knows, maybe his little leadership council that we've talked about before that decides on shoot-around locations. Like maybe this is a Garrett Temple decision, Garrett Temple and company. But I'd put a long shot bet on like a modern European place.
That's sick. I just looked it up. It's a Serbian restaurant?
Oh, we should go there, man.
It's in like Etobicoke. Like it's not really like downtown. But if they were going like after practice from the OVO Center, it wouldn't be that bad, I don't think.
This is Islington and Bloor? Oh, man.
What's Islington?
It's the other Manulife Center.
If we do...
Not the one here at Bay, but if you go all the way down to Islington Station. Yeah.
If we do 3 straight good shows, I'll take y'all there.
Shout out to the Orwell's Pub near there.
And Derek Brandale will foot the bill. Cactus Club, I got
I had a lettuce.
Cactus
coming your way.
Club at +300. I don't think you can rule that out. Although
That's pretty good value.
Blake's right though. Like if it's Darko, like they're not gonna go to Cactus Club. STK Steakhouse, I've never heard of. It's in Yorkville.
Also, rookie head coach, just get like you don't get the whole contract money up front. I don't know if you want to take a whole team of guys to a steakhouse. I don't know if that many checks have cashed yet.
Okay, so we'll put those at +500 along with Jacobs.
I guess you're right. Darko makes, I think, actually, we don't know how much Darko makes.
I would imagine it's on the lower end in the league.
Yeah, let's say like 3 to 5 per year.
Right.
Mil, of course. We're talking mils. Like, shouldn't the Pascal making 30?
I also love how Pascal, I guess Darko is like, Pascal thinks I'm cheap.
I'm just saying, if I made 6 times as much as you guys, I would pay for your lunches. That's what I'm saying.
I mean, I make you pay anyways.
Okay, fine.
Patois, I got a +500 because we know that's some of the favorites of the Raptors.
That's also really good value.
I think it's going to be Pi, guys. Like, I actually think it's
here's the thing. I like the idea of this question, but they typically go on dinners on the road. That's what Dennis was telling us on last week's show.
Yeah.
So
and they're
that opens it all up.
I'm presuming their travel schedule correctly.
Yeah.
They're gonna have a whole weekend off in New York.
Yeah.
This weekend they play Charlotte on Friday, and then they don't play again until Monday against the Knicks. Now it's impossible for them to have won 3 in a row by then.
Yeah.
They only have 2 games before then. But maybe if you beat the Heat and then beat the Hornets by like 40, you can like cash in that 3 in a row 1 game ahead of time.
Do you have the schedule?
I do.
Up. Where does it look like they might win 3 in a row in this sked here that you're looking at?
Like it's probably
anything kind of stands out.
Yeah, I mean, after this Miami game, it's Charlotte, the Knicks, and Atlanta, and I know the Knicks just put it on them pretty bad. Julius Randle, Player of the Week, but those are winnable games. They've got a back-to-back against Atlanta and then Charlotte again. So if you're confident against Atlanta, this is actually probably. And I know the Knicks, Heat, and Hawks are all going to be playoff or play-in teams in the East, but a run of Miami, Charlotte, Knicks, Hawks, Charlotte is about as easy as the schedule is going to get, probably in terms of like 6 winnable games in a row.
So funny because last
3 and 3, you say?
Last year, you guys remember when the Raptors had this 6-game homestand in December.
This was the must win,
and we were like, "This is a must win homestand. And you better go 5-1, better go 6-0.
Is this when they open with that Bucks game?
And then they open with that Bucks game where they shot
1
for 15 from the field, maybe
2 of 30 to start.
2 of 30, 2 of 30.
Yeah.
So
and then we've never been on national TV again.
So Darko's is this cap circumvention?
Him paying the thing. I mean, it'd be pretty funny if they got fined while they have a lawsuit hanging over them.
Speaking of tampering,
cap circumvention because you picked up a $40 tab for a player.
You know who should pay?
That's what the NCAA was like for a while.
You know who should pay? Azo Tam.
Oh man,
guys, Terrence Ross, formerly of the Raptors, officially announced his retirement last week on his podcast. And just wanted to give a quick moment because I think Terrence Ross was a fan favorite here for a period of time. I remember he had a 50-point. Yeah, a 50-point game against the Clippers.
He was a dunk contest champion.
Yeah, dunk contest champ. That crazy dunk against the Nuggets.
Sorry, I'm not trying to hate. I'm not trying to.
The turnover he forced at the end of Game 7, Nets Raptors. To give the Raptors a chance.
Although he was also in the wrong place on the ensuing play.
That's Dwayne's fault.
We don't
draw up the ATO on the wrong side of the floor.
That's right.
That's why, if anyone has ever been curious over the years why Kyle Lowry is so adamant about when he comes down the floor and is calling a timeout, he stands in the middle of the floor. Usually we see a point guard go to one of the hash marks on either sideline because it's a little safer to protect the ball.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you have to inbound on that side. Kyle Lowry, ever since that play where they drew up the ATO on the wrong side of the floor, calls the timeout in the middle so that you have the choice of which side you're going to inbound on.
Kyle Lowry's really a genius, man. I miss him so much.
Yeah, is that breaking news?
No, it's not. I just want to show him.
What are you bringing to the table in segment 4?
I'm sorry, man. I already did 3. All right, go ahead and carry this one that you're doing.
Sorry. It's really hot in here. Guys, Joe Mazzulla was asked.
What about the Terrence Ross thing? That's
Oh, well, you guys didn't seem like you were that excited, so I moved on.
I mean, he's got a 50-point game. He's got a dunk contest championship. He's got that weird defending the slam dunk contest championship in the year dunks? They did team ones, and his team technically won, but John Wall got voted best dunker. So, like, is he a 2-time dunk champion? He won, and then his team won. The one that stands out for me, though, is a bizarre one where he hit the buzzer beater against the Kings. This was early in the 2016-17 season.
This was a controversial thing.
And it didn't count. It didn't count because the scores, they reviewed it and they were like, the scores started the clock too late. The shot shouldn't have got off. And it's always stuck with me because the logic of that is flawed. Because to me, if Terrence Ross looked up and saw the clock was further down, he would have got the shot off faster. You are then assuming Terrence Ross would not have reacted properly to the clock being operated properly. I don't know why this is still stuck with me, why I'm still mad about it, but I am.
About this.
I remember that game. That was a huge controversy at the beginning of that
Dwayne
season.
Casey, DeMar DeRozan went over to confront the referee.
Who hasn't DeMar confronted in the NBA?
Maybe DeMar's just a little confrontational, but I actually respect
Listen to Vince Staples, man.
No, but seriously, Terrence Ross, I mean, I just remember always being in or out on Terrence Ross. Like, it was like a ongoing bit back in like 2013, 2014. And, like, I don't know, sometimes I get really frustrated because I was like, you know what, this is a really talented player. 3-and-D mold, can jump out the gym, can really shoot it as well. But, like, it just never really hit that level for me as a Raptor. So, but yeah, he's still a very likable dude. So, shout out to Terrence Ross. Happy retirement, buddy.
Some version of Terrence Ross would be such an unbelievable fit on this Raptors team. Like a guy who hits 38% of his threes and can shake. I guess, like, that's what they try to get out of Gary Trent Jr., but I don't know if that's been as consistent yet as...
Yeah, Terrence Ross or Gary Trent Jr. is a good argument after his career.
I take care.
All right, I think we're almost wrapped up, so I'm gonna just let you guys know Ivica Zubac's nicknames.
Oh yeah, that's a great list.
So on Basketball Reference, it's Zublock, Zublaka, Big Z, Zupac, Zoo Elcinder. Oh my God! And then Larry Nance's former teammate added ones that he came up with: Zucci Mane, Zudacris, Lil Zuzi Vert,
that's not good,
Zuby Doo, and Judge Zudi. Any of these,
man,
sounds
really like Larry Nance wants to be a part of the Zutang clan.
Judge Zudi, that's me off that Theo Melodome, man.
Yo, that's great. Oh man. Oh, these are great nicknames, man.
These are amazing.
Does Zubac really need that many nicknames? By the way, his nickname should be Zubat, which is a very popular Pokemon.
Zoo Elcinder is incredible.
Well, what has he done to get the Zoo Elcinder?
First defensive stop, it would be Zoo Holiday.
Oh my God.
All right, we're gonna stop here today. I've been your host, Wolu. You've been listening to the Raptor Show on the Sportsnet Radio Network.
Please
make sure you find the Raptor Show wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe. And please rate and review this show. Thanks once again to Tas Melas, Michael Pina. Producer and co-host Alex Wong, Blake Murphy, or producer
Faizal Khamisa,
James Wilson, David Sis, Jared Manitat, helping behind the scenes. We will see you tomorrow.